For years, if you were looking to buy a brand new old truck, you'd be looking at a Nissan Frontier. By now, everybody should know the second generation version of the Frontier was sold in America from 2005 all the way up to 2021. But that all changes, of course, this year for 2022 because Nissan has finally given the Frontier the full redesign that this truck has needed for years. As you can see, I'm standing by this 2022 SV mid-trim. And unlike the Pro 4X model that I drove back in Utah a couple months ago, this is probably the trim that most people are going to go for. It's a mid-trim without all of the off-road goodies that the Pro 4X offers. And of course, because it's a full redesign, we're looking at an all-new exterior design. We're looking at a completely redesigned interior with some new tech features. But surprisingly, we have a carryover engine that Nissan did introduce back in 2020 on the old Frontier. So if you guys are looking for a small to mid-sized truck that can do truck things, how does the 2022 redesigned Frontier stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So now that I've got the redesigned Frontier in my possession for about a week, it's giving me an opportunity to extensively test this vehicle versus on the first drive where I only had the vehicle for a couple of hours. Nissan also sent me the mid-trim, which I'm really happy about because this is probably the trim level that most people are going to buy, although I will point out that my tester here has a bunch of options on it that is raising the price by about $7,000. Now, of course, for $7,000 on top of the $35,000 base price of this model, you do get a lot of features, which we'll talk about as we go on through this video. Now, first of all, I do love the new styling design of the 2022 model. It takes a lot of design cues from like the Titan Warrior concept that Nissan showed a couple of years ago. It really looks like a much better version of the Tacoma. In fact, some of you may even look at this vehicle and say, it looks like Nissan basically copied and pasted the Tacoma. It looks like what the Tacoma should look like. But again, this is a Nissan vehicle. You can see it has some new styling details here that they're introducing on this vehicle that you saw on some of their newer products. You can see Frontier is kind of spelled out boldly in the grille. You have the new Nissan logo here with the kind of white outline in it. With a new script. It does look a lot better. And then most base versions of the Frontier will come standard with just halogen headlights and halogen fog lights. However, my tester has an SL or an SV premium package that rolls in these full LED low and high beams. It even has LED turn signals. It has these 3 LED accent lights, and then you have LED fog lights. These lights are standard on the Pro 4X, but it is optional on the SV trim. I believe the base S will only come with halogen headlights, which again, sad that they couldn't offer standard LED headlights on all trims, but it is a huge upgrade from the old one, which didn't even offer an upgraded headlight. You could only get them with halogens. Now, the rest of the front fascia you can see on the SV has some kind of gray accents on the lower part of the front bumper, as opposed to the red accents that you get on the Pro 4X. It definitely looks a little bit more plain Jane, especially when you look at it from the side profile here. You can see this model here is the crew cab, which means it has the 4 full-size doors and the shorter 5-foot bed. You can also option in a 6-foot bed if you'd like. The King cab model only comes with a 6-foot bed, which is a half door configuration. Now, looking at the wheels, I really don't like the wheels on this SV version. You can see they're kind of just like a sparkle silver design to them. They look a little bit plain. And these are a 17-inch wheel. You have 265 R17 Michelin Primacy road-going tires. Again, the Pro 4X model will give you BF Goodrich all-terrain tires, which just gives this truck a more aggressive look. I believe the ground clearance is still around just under 9 inches. The Pro 4X may give you a little bit more ground clearance. And you can see, looking at the side profile, the truck definitely looks new, but for those of you who are wondering about the frame, Nissan actually carried over the frame from the previous generation. That's right, it's still running the same frame from the old truck, but they did make extensive modifications to it to make the frame stronger, to give us a little bit better noise, vibration, and harshness damping. The suspension in the front is an independent front suspension. The back still uses leaf springs. It's still a solid axle. You can see with the 4 full-size doors, it has well proportions, and it's around 210 inches long. Still a little bit shorter than most of its competitors. Its wheelbase is 126 inches long, about the same as most of its competitors. This is, remember, the 5-foot bed. The 6-foot bed will have a longer wheelbase and overall length. Now at the rear, you can see, I think the Frontier looks better from the front versus the rear. It looks a little bit plain. You could easily confuse this for another truck, an American truck, but I am happy to see Nissan put full LED taillights on the back. You can see even the turn signal is LED. I also like how the SV badge has kind of like a graphite gray lettering as opposed to a chrome. You can see Frontier is stamped on the back of the tailgate. You have a body colored bumper along with nicely integrated parking sensors. And then in terms of the bed, you can see the bed is damped, which is nice. My tester, because it's got the SV premium package, also rolls in a spray-in bed liner, which is great. The bed is very useful. You can see you have your usual array of things like these cargo tie-down hooks. You have more hooks over there. There is a household power outlet over here, although it's just a standard 400 watt inverter. And then you also have LED lighting back here, and in typical mid-size truck fashion, you can get a bunch of accessories like a bed extender, a tonneau cover, whatnot. But if you're looking for some more clever features like you might find in something like the Honda Ridgeline, you're not going to find that in this vehicle because it is a traditional bed. Payload capacity for this particular model here is just under 1,300 pounds, which is a little bit less than most of its competitors. All right, so let me show you guys the interior of the SV trim. Now, this one here does come standard with Nissan's Smart Key Access System with push-button start. You can see it also has remote start on the fob, which is nice. I don't believe you could even get that on the old Frontier, but you can see this is still Nissan's kind of egg-shaped key, which is old, but at least it feels good and it's a nice size. When you want to enter the vehicle, you can see the button. There's a button on the outside of the door that locks the door. Push the button again, that unlocks the door. But looking at this interior, you can see this deep blue metallic is augmented by this nice black leather interior with some nice texturized look to the material. You also have a diamond or a hexagonal stitching on some parts of the seat. These are also 2-level heated seats. You have a 8-way power driver seat with a manual 2-way lumbar support, which the lumbar lever is over here on the left side. These are also Nissan's zero gravity memory foam seats, which make the seats very comfortable. I also like how high they sit up. Unlike the Tacoma where you feel like you're kind of sitting on the floor, this gives you a nice higher up seating position. The one thing I noticed about this interior, the door panel here actually looks like it came off of the old Frontier. I don't know why it looks so old to me, but you can see materials, hard touch plastic right here, soft touch right here, padded where your elbow would rest. And then there's also some interesting design touches here, like this area right here where it looks like a lot of dirt can kind of build up. I don't know why there's this like little crevice right here where dirt can build up, but you can see here, there's a grab handle over here, chrome accented door handles, and then you have one touch up down for the driver window, but everything else is not one touch. The window switches and controls look kind of old again. Now getting inside the truck, you can see no grab handle here, which would have been nice. So somebody that's my height, I can get in and out of this truck okay. When I shut the door, it actually has a solid sounding thunk. So that's very impressive to see in something like this, especially in this segment, which isn't typically known for it. Nissan puts the button to fire up the engine right here, which push button start is standard. Intelligent key, however, is not. And that definitely looks pretty cool. The gauges do a nice sweep. You have a 7-inch helper screen between the two gauges, which is great. This is the smaller 8-inch touchscreen display. As you can see, there's a lot more black unused real estate over there. The 9-inch display is only available on the Pro 4X version, and I believe the Pro X models. Basically, Nissan did a good job of kind of hiding the fact that this is the smaller display, although when it's on, you can see a lot of the black border, which would just be expanded a little bit more on the 9-inch version. This is when you have the 9-inch display, it's the largest screen in the segment, which isn't really saying much for this segment, but that's probably going to change very soon in the coming years. The dashboard, you can see, is all a hard touch injection molded plastic. This right here is slightly padded with fake stitching, but it definitely feels more hard to the touch. Down here, it's also hard touch, but at least the material or the fit and finish in this truck is pretty solid. I do think it has a nice solid design feel to it. The steering wheel, you can see this comes off of the new Nissan Titan or the current Titan. It's an old steering wheel. It's got the new Nissan logo on it. The horn sounds pretty good. It's very much like what you expect in a vehicle this size. The one thing I don't like, the steering wheel only tilts. You can't get a telescoping wheel in this truck, which is super frustrating because I can't get a good driving position in this vehicle. I really wanted Nissan to offer a telescoping wheel, and you just can't get that in this truck, which is annoying. This SV is also missing the heated wheel, or I'm sorry, it does have a heated wheel, but it doesn't have a heated, it doesn't offer cooled seats. Cooled seats is typically a rare option to find anyways in this segment, so I'm not too mad about that. But I do think it looks pretty good. I do like how you have a volume knob and a tuning knob. You have dual zone climate control. You have parking sensors, USB-C and USB-A port. There is a place where you can put your phone over here, but the SV is missing a wireless phone charger, which you can get on the upper trims. When you put the truck into reverse, you can see there's the backup camera. It offers trajectory and distance markers and parking sensors, like I said. No top-down 360 camera. This is what controls the 9-speed auto. Very traditional shifter with a manual mode, but no sport mode, and there's no panels on the wheel, which I wasn't expecting in a truck like this. Looking at the center console, you can see it's a pretty good size. You can put a bunch of junk in there if you'd like. This is a nice padded lid. The seats, like I mentioned earlier, are pretty soft and comfortable. I just can't get a really great driving position because the steering wheel doesn't come out further like I'd like. Looking at the glove compartment, you can see it's big, it's damped, and it's not lined with felt. You have a power outlet that's kind of hidden over there. You have a four-wheel drive switch over here, which the one thing that Nissan doesn't offer is an auto position for its four-wheel drive system. You either have two-wheel drive, four high, or four low. A lot of the competitors are going to an automatic setting, so I would like to see Nissan offer that in the future. A little bit of storage over here. And then above me, you can see LED lighting in the front, which is nice. And then you just get a standard size sunroof, which pano roofs typically aren't found in this segment, so I'm not too mad about that. So overall, the cabin brings it up to the modern 21st century with some cool stuff, even some class-leading stuff. There are some elements in here that makes me feel like I'm in an old truck, like the steering wheel and the door panels, but other than that, I think Nissan did a fantastic job. So let's hop into the back seat of this crew cab model. Now, I want to point out that the crew cab is obviously the one you're going to want to get if you guys regularly need to carry your family or adults in the back seat, but it is still pretty small by numbers compared to a lot of the competition. As you can see, my tester with the premium package rolls in the leather also in the back seats with some of the contrasting stitching. And you can see this is pretty much where I have the front seat to drive. I matched it with the passenger side, and Nissan says you get around 33.5 inches of legroom back here, which isn't great. You do have some features that you expect in this segment. For example, pull that lever here, you can see the rear seat back bottom cushion folds up to give you some nice storage underneath here, although it's not really lockable or covered storage. You can see the speaker for the Fender stereo is also underneath the seat over there. You basically pull this up over here. That allows the seat to come back down, and the seat itself doesn't recline, which is not something that I was expecting in this segment. Now, getting inside, you can see there's a handle that helps you kind of hoist yourself in, and then once you're in this truck, at 5'7", I'm not very tall, and I noticed that the space back here is pretty tight. Now, you can fit 3 people across, which is nice. The floor here is not completely flat, but it's pretty darn close. You have a standard 120-volt power outlet there. You have a USB-C and a USB-A port. You have 2 storage pockets here on both of the front seats, which is great. Headroom, the sunroof does eat in a little bit of space. There is LED lighting even in the back over here, which is great. The materials back here, you can see hard touch plastic with more of that soft leatherette material on the door panels. You see even the door panel here on the rear looks like it was carried over from the old truck. But overall, if you want more legroom, you're definitely going to want to look at something like the Honda Ridgeline. This does feel a little bit more cramped than even something like the Tacoma. I feel like the Tacoma feels like it offers a little bit more space in the back seat. Now, underneath the hood of the new Frontier, you're actually going to find an engine that is carried over from the 2020 model. However, Nissan will remind you that that engine was completely redesigned or all new back in 2020, and it was designed accordingly to be put in the new Frontier. So now, of course, we just have an engine that was designed to be put into this new truck. Now, the engine is still part of the VQ engine family. This is now a 3.8 liter naturally aspirated double overhead cam V6. It makes 310 horsepower, 281 pound-feet of torque. Nissan is quick to point out that is the most horsepower that you'll find in this segment, although something like the Ford Ranger with its 2.3 turbo does offer more torque than this V6. But regardless, it's a great amount of power, more powerful than something like the Toyota Tacoma, which definitely feels like a slug at times. You have one transmission option. It's a 9-speed automatic transmission. It's the same design transmission as the one that's in the new Nissan Titan. And you can take your pick between either rear or 4-wheel drive. My particular tester is 4-wheel drive. Fuel economy is not wonderful, but it's also pretty class competitive. This 4-wheel drive example is rated at 17 in the city, 22 on the highway. You can run this engine on regular gas. It has a 21-gallon gas tank. And for those of you who plan to tow, this particular one here tows a maximum of 6,300 pounds. It's a little bit less than the full capacity, which is around 6,700 pounds on certain 2-wheel drive trims. The new Frontier, of course, is a little bit heavier than the old one. As this one sits, it weighs in at around 4,600 pounds, which is not bad, but again, not the lightest in the segment. Nissan didn't quote any 0 to 60 performance testing, but now that I have my testing equipment back home, I'll be sure to test it out and we can see what kind of numbers we get in this new truck. All right, so it's been about 2 months since I drove the new Frontier back in Utah. Now that I have one for a week, it's allowing me the opportunity to really extensively test this vehicle back home. And I wasn't able to do a 0 to 60 performance sprint in the first video because we were at elevation. It was obviously sucking the power. So now that we're back in this area here, I've got my trusty 0 to 60 timing equipment. We are driving an SV trim with 4-wheel drive. It's a crew cab short bed, and it means that this model is a little bit lighter versus the Pro 4X that I drove a couple months ago. So let's go ahead and test out what this baby can do. New engine, 310 horsepower. Well, not new, but ooh, nice. Wasn't expecting it to take off so abruptly. All right, so my first run, I got 6.65 seconds. That's honestly pretty quick. Nissan didn't quote any 0 to 60 sprints for this vehicle, but this feels considerably faster than the Toyota Tacoma. And it also feels faster than the Chevrolet Colorado, the GMC Canyon. It's about as quick feeling as a Ridgeline. The Ridgeline has this kind of urgency as well. And I'm gonna do another one just to see if I can get a similar number on a road that I'm pretty familiar with, I'm always on. But I noticed this truck had a pretty fast, or had a really great engine when I first drove it initially, and I'm finding out that that's still pretty much the case. We'll brake torque it again. All right, there I got 7.09 seconds, and that's with it going slightly uphill. So slowed it down a tad, but I'd say this vehicle should be able to sprint to 60 in the high 6-second mark. So we'll average it out to be around 6.8, 6.9 seconds, which is plenty fast in this segment. I mean, it feels, by the numbers, this is probably about a second faster than the last Tacoma with the V6 that I drove. So right off the bat, Nissan has the superior powertrain. They claim this is the most powerful V6 in the segment, and they're right. It is the most powerful by 2 horsepower, at least until somebody comes out with a more powerful engine, which in turn will make this vehicle not the most powerful anymore. But the interesting thing about the Frontier is, I mentioned earlier, it has a heavily modified version of the same frame underneath. This is still a body-on-frame truck, still an independent front suspension, still uses leaf springs at the back, but they've redesigned some of the componentry where the bushings mount. So you get something that feels like a little bit more modern, but you also get a sense that you're driving an old school truck. It feels like a modern version of an old school Formula. And you can tell that Nissan played it very safe here. Just driving the truck normally, I feel like I'm piloting a truck. Like the steering, for example, is super heavy. Even at low speeds, it feels heavy, but it also feels like you can feel the road. You can feel what the tires are doing when contacting the road, because this is a hydraulic power steering assist. They didn't switch to an electric power steering assist, which is why this truck doesn't offer any lane keep assist, why you can't get Nissan's Pro Pilot, Pro driver assistance tech. You can get adaptive cruise control. My truck has it, and it has lane departure and blind spot monitoring, but you get a sense that, again, you're driving something that feels like a truck. Put your foot down here, and the V6 makes a pretty nice snarl. It's a 3.8 liter naturally aspirated VQ engine, and they've done a good job of tuning out the vibrations. You can still feel a little bit of vibration back and through the pedals and the steering wheel when you start revving it above 5. That's always been a trademark characteristic of the VQ engine. But you get a sense also that it likes to rev. It will shift really aggressively when you're driving aggressively, even though this transmission doesn't have any paddles, there's no sport mode. The 9-speed's a good transmission. This is kind of like a variation of the 9-speed that you find in the new Nissan Titan as well. So I'm just happy that Nissan is moving away, of course, from CVTs, although the old Frontier had a 5-speed automatic. Technically, you could find this powertrain in the 2020 model, which was new when it first came out. The steering definitely, I think Nissan needs to work on making the steering lighter at low speeds. It makes the truck feel a little cumbersome to drive when you're just piloting around town. Thankfully, they didn't really make this new truck any bigger, and it feels like a good size. You get a sense that the vehicle doesn't feel quite as wide as something like the Honda Ridgeline. It feels like I'm driving like a modern, like a different version of the Toyota Tacoma. Honestly, it drives a lot like a Tacoma, just save for a better engine and transmission. The seats in the Frontier are still one of my favorites. These are the zero gravity NASA inspired memory foam front seats. The headrest could be more comfortable, but the seat bottom cushion is really soft, which I like a lot. This steering wheel, I don't like the design of it. It's the same steering wheel that we find in the current Titan, and it's an old steering wheel. I mean, overall, Nissan did a lot here to make the new Frontier feel like a new version, but I just wonder, is this truck gonna feel new 2 years from now? Because we've got new versions of the Tacoma coming out soon. We've got a new version of the Ranger coming out soon. GM is gonna be working on new versions of the Colorado and the Canyon. And then of course, if you guys don't need the body on frame truck with the off-road capability, you can also look at the Hyundai Santa Cruz and the Ford Maverick, which I've already had a chance to drive. They technically are a segment below this vehicle, but it's considerably less expensive, and you can also, still haul a lot of crap in the bed. This technically tows more, but payload capacity on something like the Maverick is surprisingly higher versus this Frontier. So obviously there's a lot of choices in the segment, and the Frontier is still a really solid option, especially if you must have a traditional truck with a body on frame design and off-road capability. But again, some competitors like Toyota and GM offer even more off-road capability, which Nissan does not right now. The Pro 4X is the most off-road capable model you can get, and this one here is just the more road-friendly version, although you can still take it off-road. In terms of efficiency, I've been averaging about 19 miles to the gallon in mixed driving in most of my testing since I've had this vehicle. It's not bad gas mileage. On the highway, it did get a little over 21 miles to the gallon, so not wonderful MPG figures, but pretty much class competitive. Nissan continues to only offer one powertrain in this vehicle. I don't know if they're going to offer more. But in terms of just living with this vehicle every day, you're always going to be reminded that it's a truck because it handles a little cumbersomely, it rides a little bouncy. Like, I don't really have anything in the bed right now, and you feel the ride quality is like, it just kind of jitters around, and it's a little bit uncomfortable. But not any more uncomfortable than a lot of its competitors. You're obviously going to buy a Ridgeline or a Maverick or a Santa Cruz if you want the most comfortable ride quality in a truck. So overall, yeah, I'm impressed with the new Frontier, but I'm also slightly disappointed because I think Nissan could have done more to push the envelope, because for now, it's a great option, but what's it going to be like in 2-3 years when new competitors come out? So after spending a week with the brand new 2022 Nissan Frontier, I'm pretty happy to report that for those of you who are brand loyal to Nissan, let's say you're upgrading from your old Frontier and you've been waiting a long time for Nissan to introduce a new one, you're going to find plenty to like here, because what Nissan essentially did is they've taken the good bones of the old model and fully modernized it. They gave us a lot of the new features that we like. They also wrapped it in styling that is super attractive and super aggressive. The interior is definitely comfortable, if a little bit cramped on the inside, but it has all of the tech features that we want, and some of it is even class-leading tech. This is the largest screen that you're going to find in the segment at 9 inches if you guys go for the Pro 4X. This one here has the smaller 8-inch display. But really, I question whether Nissan has done enough here, because after spending a week with this model, I still see a lot of compromises with this vehicle. I personally couldn't get a comfortable driving position because the steering wheel frustratingly doesn't telescope, which really annoys me. The ride quality, if you're not carrying stuff in the bed regularly, is a little bit too truck bouncy, and I would have liked if Nissan could have made it a little bit smoother, of course, when it's unloaded. And really, I worry about this truck because Nissan, while it is a great option right now, we are expecting completely redesigned versions of the Toyota Tacoma, the Ford Ranger, which is going to be based off of the new Bronco, and then of course GM's going to come out with new versions of the Colorado and the Canyon, and that's probably going to make the Frontier feel dated, because right now it feels pretty much on par with its segment competitors, which are themselves also getting dated. And I think what Nissan has done here is they're offering a nice option now, but I think in 2 years this truck is going to feel dated. So unless Nissan is planning to make some pretty significant overhauls within the next year or two to keep the Frontier competitive, I think for now the vehicle is fine, but I'm just not entirely sure the design is future-proof, because I think Nissan could have pushed the envelope a little bit further. But with all that said, if you guys are looking to buy this new truck, you should obviously know the Frontier is now more expensive. This vehicle starts at around $29,000 for the base S version. That is including the destination charge. Nissan's website shows like $27,900. If you guys want four-wheel drive, it's going to cost you about $3,200 more for four-wheel drive, about $1,600 more if you want the crew cab configuration versus the king cab. So roughly spend $5,000 if you at least want to get four-wheel drive and the crew cab four full-size doors. This SV version, the mid-trim, which gives you most of the features that buyers demand nowadays, starts at around $35,000 with four-wheel drive and the crew cab. My tester here is pretty loaded up on the options, from the technology package to the premium package. This one here stickers for around $42,000. $42,000 is definitely expensive, not any more expensive than something like the Toyota Tacoma or the Ford Ranger with the right option packages, but I think for that kind of money, I would rather just step it up to the Pro 4X to get better looking wheels and a little bit more ground clearance and the off-road tech. But for those of you who want a regular truck, you can also just kind of make those modifications yourself. I do think the Frontier is one of the best looking, and it does have one of the most comfortable front seats that I've tested, but just be sure to try it out because I personally couldn't get a comfortable driving position because the steering wheel does not telescope, and I really want Nissan to just add that feature whenever they go on to the next model year. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Nissan Frontier. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.